Charlie Kirk was murdered in what was clearly not some random nutter on the left they would, of course, want to frame. Did Israel kill Charlie Kirk? The intelligence agencies in the West are controlled by Mossad, by Israel. Do you understand that?
News, current affairs, facts and opinion. Their future in our hands. Markets, globalist technocrats versus the people. A line in the sand. The McIntyre Report.
And welcome back to the McIntyre Report. Jamie McIntyre reporting live for Australian National Review, ANR.news for our 24-hour news headlines. If you want to follow independent media, and more likely by following independent media, you'll find out the truth, because one thing we can be sure of in this world, many people realize since the COVID pandemic, that mainstream media or fake news media lies to you when pretty much all the time. The intelligence agencies lie to you as well. They feed the media whatever they want. And our governments in the West, in the so-called democracy, are pretty much puppets to represent not you, not the person that voted for them, but globalist interests. So Charlie Kirk, sadly, was assassinated September 10th. Who did it? It's got the internet abuzz, many accusations of who did it. Of course, fake news media is telling us it was a leftist transgender that got up on the roof all by himself without being noticed, pre-organized everything, which, you know, looks like a professional hit, managed to shoot Charlie Kirk and kill him from some distance, then get off the roof, dispose of the weapon, like pull it apart, the sniper rifle, pull it apart and fit it in a backpack, which if you try and do that with that rifle he was using, it can't fit in a backpack, but did that in record time and then just left it conveniently for the FBI or intelligence agencies to find in the woods. And he had time to inscribe on the bullet as well, and many glaring other inconsistencies. Now, here's what I'm going to tell you, folks. If you believe for 1 second what you're being told is the truth, then you probably still believe the official narrative about September 11th, yet you can't explain how Building 7 collapsed that didn't have any planes hit it, amongst any other anomaly. You still probably can't explain October 7th. How did on that day, only that day, IDF not do anything about a breach of their border when any other day a mouse approaching the prison fence around Gaza with the sensors and cameras would go off and be exterminated. But no, for 6 hours, anyone could have walked across that border, done whatever they wanted, and nothing was done about it. Which is weird for a nation that's so big on self-defense. That why did they not self-defend on October 7th? I'm just curious. Actually, Charlie Kirk was curious as well and asked the same questions to about Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. Charlie Kirk used to be pro-Israel. Charlie Kirk, we were going to have headline the Free Speech Summit, the Australian National Review hosted in Australia 2 months ago, but only on the basis that he would agree to a debate with me about Israel. Why should we or anyone stand with Israel? Because up until then, he was very known as pro-Israel. His Turning Point organization was funded by Israel and their wealthy sponsors. People don't realize that. So I agree with Charlie with many things that he talked about. Very talented guy, built a profile, and did good work. I always said he was a good Christian boy. You can see clearly he had good character. He had good intention. He was very dedicated to his family and his faith in Christianity. But like many Christians, he was also misled, deeply misled, somehow believing the lies and deception by the devil that resides in a fake state created in 1948 that passes off by fraudulently using a biblical name called Israel, which was designed deliberately to fool particularly American Christians, Christian Zionists, to believe that, I read about Israel in the Bible. This must be the same Israel. They also said the Rothschilds, the banker wanker cartel family, richest family on the planet, or one of them, that founded Israel. And behind pretty much every war on the planet, as you know, if you know anything about the truth in the world, nearly all wars are banker wars, and Rothschilds were the central bankers, and the reason you pay so much for a house in Australia and so much interest rates and everything and how much tax you pay comes back to these Rothschilds, the founders of this fake state, banking state, which they claim they were the chosen ones. Now, the fact that they don't believe in God, they're agnostic, they actually hate Jesus and don't believe in Jesus, but claim that God chose them. It's kind of, somewhat abnormal, but Christian Zionists believe it. They never question. Maybe fair enough. No fact checkers back in 1948 to go, I wonder a satanic Luciferian bunch of banker wankers in the Rothschilds who founded a fake state in 1948 with the help of 3 terrorist groups who are the globalist terrorists, the funders of terrorism that created Hamas, ISIS, Al-Qaeda, pretty much have done pretty much every terror attack around the world, fund weapons in Africa and South America to cause civil, every dispute on the planet, every war on the planet can pretty much be traced back to these people, if you don't know that. So Charlie, like many people, was misled, but in recent months, Charlie Kirk had an awakening. Candace Owens would call it a spiritual transformation. But Charlie started to realize, because Charlie had moral character, once he realized the truth, he could no longer lie. No, he's not a Ben Shapiro. Ben for any amount of shekels will lie his little ass off for little Israel, He has no morals, as you know, no principles, no values. And that's who they want Ben to take over Charlie's work. Charlie Kirk was murdered in what was clearly not some random nutter on the left they would, of course, want to frame. We predictably said, we put up $1 million here at the Australian National View, that Israel did it. Before we even started our investigation, we said, here's $1 million. Once we started investigation, you increased that to 10 million. Do you realize that offer's been out for 9 days now, $10 million for anyone on the planet to show proof that Israel did not kill Charlie Kirk, and there's not a single taker? I mean, do we need to offer more money? Because we'll talk about after the break how we're able to accurately, to the tune of 99% certainty, happily put $10 million up and know that money's safe, that Israel killed Charlie Kirk. Now, if you don't realize that Israel is the prime suspect, we'll talk about that in just a moment. Let's come back to it after the break and talk about this.
The McIntyre Report.
And welcome back, folks. McIntyre Report. Jeremy McIntyre speaking here live for Australian National Review in our studios. ANR.news, follow our 24-hour news headlines. Did Israel kill Charlie Kirk? Well, people must understand this. Charlie was original pro-Israel. As I was talking about before the break there, Charlie started to turn. Charlie started to realize, he questioned and highlighted multiple times that Epstein was clearly a Mossad agent, which we all know. I mean, it's pretty obvious if you had done any research. And his job was to blackmail particularly US politicians, but Western politicians around the world, into being subservient and abiding by whatever Israel wanted. And it's not up for debate that Israel controls the United States of America. And people must understand this. Many people think that America controls Israel. No, Israel, this bank of fake state, controls the West. And they want to control the Middle East, the Greater Israel Project, and they want to expand that to controlling the world. Do you understand that? Israel controls America. Israel needs America still at this point in time, just like it used to need the British Empire to have sucked it dry and destroyed it by starting World War II and having Britain, fight and die in that. And then it's moved to another host. This is a parasite to the US empire, and it's about to suck it dry. And as we'll highlight shortly, it's looking for a new host because it no longer needs America for much longer. But Israel controls the West, including Australia, if you don't realize that. If you have mass immigration in Australia, just like you do have in other parts of the West, it seems to be everywhere in the West, not just Australia, mass immigration. Who controls immigration policies? That would be Israel. Who bombs excess Muslim countries? Israel. Who floods those refugees into the West? That would be Israel. Who has a coercively plan to do that deliberately to divide you so you don't unite together as one tribe, one people, and go, hang on a minute, why are we letting foreigners dictate to us how many people come here or not, how much taxes we paid? Income tax, you heard of that? You pay income tax. Guess who invented income tax? Yes, that would be the Rothschilds, the founders of Israel. So why do you think there's going to be more war? Why is there war against Russia in Europe, in Ukraine, which the West started? It was started because of Israel. Israel wanted to pick off Russia and then Iran. Why do you think they want Iran? They wanted 7 wars in 5 years after Israel did September 11th. So if you don't even know that Israel did September 11th, you probably aren't up to speed that Israel also was behind October 7th to frame Hamas to do what they're doing now, genocide, as the Chinese minister said. Why we have an issue with you? If you want to kill Hamas, kill terrorists, go and kill the terrorists, shoot terrorists, stop shooting the children and the innocent people. Not a bad idea, but no, they don't do that. That's why the world hates them. What's this got to do with Charlie Kirk? Well, Charlie Kirk called out about Epstein being a Mossad agent. He also recently on shows called out, and this is all evidence. You can go and watch these shows we covered in the last episode. Netanyahu, and said it's impossible for Israel not to have been complicit with October 7th. Was there stand down orders? Was there stand down orders by Israel to stand down the IDF for 6 hours to let Hamas come across the borders and do what they were assigned to do? And as we know further, that Hamas was filled with Mossad operatives who did a lot of the killing. Most of the killing done on October 7th of the 1,100 Israelis claimed to have been killed, majority were killed by the IDF. Hamas doesn't possess Apache helicopters to fire and destroy all the cars at the rave concert, which conveniently was relocated 48 hours before to near the border. Hamas doesn't have any tanks, which blew up Israeli settlement houses and killed the babies that were in the house. These are questions you should ask. So Charlie Kirk was starting to ask. Now, this is evidence on the Megyn Kelly interview. His last interview with Ben Shapiro, you can see Ben just sitting there like a stunned mullet, not willing to engage on anything. Then there was a classic Hamptons takedown where they ganged up on Charlie and Bill Ackman, a Jewish billionaire, and the pressure put on Charlie. See, Charlie's the sort of person with moral fiber that when he's going to be pressured, now claims of Netanyahu is offering $150 million to Turning Point for Charlie to push a pro-Israeli stance. Why? Because Turning Point used to be pro-Israel, but most of his supporters, because most young people 30 and under, detest Israel because they kind of don't like someone dropping bombs on children. They've had enough knowledge in the world to know that that's evil. Now, it's strange that some Christians in America, Christian Zionists, haven't figured out that they're supporting the evil side, but that's another lesson for another day. Charlie started to figure this out. And Charlie was one of the most influential people. He went and saw President Trump recently to say it's a mistake to let Netanyahu start a war with Iran. Stay out. Trump angrily dismissed Charlie Kirk and kicked him out of the White House. Now, Trump is under a lot of pressure because Trump doesn't want to get Charlie Kirk either and assassinated. Israel have information on him that they can expose and destroy his presidency. But if regardless, Israel is destroying Trump's presidency. Trump was elected to make the MAGA movement, to make America great again. Not MAGA, not to make Israel great again. America first, not Israel first. But we're seeing everything done by Trump has been to Israel first. And if you think he's saving Israel to last, no, Trump is shit scared that Israel will take him out. And they have leverage on him. Trump hung out for a decade with Epstein, partying with him, surrounded by teenage girls. Do you think there's not some compromising footage of young teenage girls and Trump out there. Now, I'm not suggesting Trump's a pedophile. He's not. He's not the one that's doing things with children. But there's probably some inconvenient footage. He's leveraged financially as well by Israel. So regardless of what you take on that, is Charlie Kirk was turning. That's clear. Charlie Kirk was becoming a problem for Israel. So Israel had both motive, capability. See, some nutcases on the left, and it's pathetic their reaction, extreme left, to celebrating Charlie Kirk's death. I mean, that is pathetic. There's no disagreeing with that. But some of these left-wing far nutters, extreme nutters, radical left, might have motive, might want to kill Charlie Kirk because they don't like what he has to say. But do they have capability? If it was some random person that killed Charlie Kirk, you would have saw them sneak a gun in, walk up through the crowd and pop Charlie Kirk. Some random doesn't coordinate with obviously a team to pull it off, to be able to get past security, to get on a roof, even when you're noticed and nothing done about it, on video notice, and people saying, even before he killed, there's a person on the roof. But how's a single person get security to do nothing about that? Intelligence agencies can do that, but not a single person. How's a professional shooter on the roof get there and be noticed and nothing done about it, and get off the roof after shooting someone in broad daylight in front of thousands of people and security detail, and just be able to get off the roof and then have the time to casually unpack a rifle, which is incredibly difficult on the run, and just conveniently sit it in the woods for it to be found. I mean, all these things that, it just didn't happen that way, but you're being told that. So, of course, believe it, because fake news has never lied to you before. The intelligence agencies in the West are controlled by Mossad, by Israel. Do you understand that? Israel controls America, controls the West, controls our intelligence agencies. Do you understand that? So why would Mossad, his intelligence agency, say, yep, you're right, you got us this time. Yes, it was us. We did it. Damn. We shouldn't have been so sloppy. You bloody independent journalists don't believe our bullshit stories about some patsy. Now, the prime suspect was always Israel. So when you look at the prime suspect, you've got to look at, did they have motive? Clear motive. Charlie had turned. Charlie was one of the most influential people in political on the right. And the right was splitting. Half the right was standing with against Israel. The other far right nutters were standing with Israel that haven't figured it out, the fraud of Israel yet. So they couldn't afford to lose the right and MAGA. Trump's presidency will implode, which is going to implode anyhow. Israel will destroy that, as they will destroy the world if we do not wake up in time. Do you understand what I'm saying here? It's critical. Now, a lot of people are horrified by what happened to Charlie Kirk and are turning to Christianity, which is great. But if they become Christian Zionists, then the devil wins. The trick of tricking them to support Israel, because Hamas is evil. Hamas is a creation of Israel. You must realize that. Funded by Israel. They even funded their head offices. They just bombed in Doha in Qatar without permission. I mean, this is a psychopathic state in Netanyahu that's out of control. If you haven't figured that out yet, just stay tuned and watch what we've got to cover and what's coming in the world because of Israel. Israel wants a one world government run out of Jerusalem, where you will be a slave, a goyim. And if you say something wrong, they'll Charlie Kirk you. It'll be a totalitarian future. You will be a slave. Digital money, they'll shut you down, vax you to death. Who do you think was behind the vaccine pandemic? That will do all these things to you. And they divide you to keep you divided. Why do they need you hating the left if you're on the right? And why do they want the left hating the right? Because if you're divided and think each other is the enemy, that the left-wing nutters are the enemy, yes, they're nutters, and yes, they are dangerous to society, but they're done with. They've been so brainwashed by Israel, by the globalist faction, left faction of Israel, that they can't even function effectively in society and have such hatred towards the right, blaming the right. This is Israel, classic divide. They want blacks to hate whites. They want anti-Semitism. They want, mass immigration. They want left versus right. They want gays versus non-gays. They will split and divide every section of society to keep you distracted from the common enemy of humanity, which is Israel. Not biblical Israel. Not the real Israel that Christians support. We're talking fake Israel, 1948 fakeness. A fake state created by fake Jewish imposters in the Rothschilds. Now, this is not conspiracy theory stuff. This is factual. Dear Lord Rothschild, the Balfour Declaration. This is all known. If you don't know this stuff and you're just new to independent media, you can fact check all this out. There's plenty of episodes you can watch of Australian National Review or other independent media that tells you the truth. So Charlie was killed by Israel, prime suspect. Now, of course, we didn't know this for sure. So we thought, let's see if we can predict what's going to happen. We said on the McIntyre Report, the morning after Charlie Kirk's death, I said it publicly on camera. I said I increased that to $10 million. The Australian National Review will offer anyone that can prove Israel didn't kill Charlie Kirk. But here's why we're so certain. One, I said also what they will do, they will frame a left-wing transgender patsy. They will have a patsy. What they will have is just like when Israel killed JFK, they blamed Lee Harvey Oswald. So they set up a patsy, brainwash him, say they're working for the government, whatever they tell these, MK Ultra, whatever, that you're working for a government secret mission, you'll be protected, and we need you to shoot this individual. And we'll work with you as a team. And they put him in place. That's the patsy. That's the person that they're not going to do the killing. Okay? They're just there to do that. Someone to frame, so afterwards they go to jail and get executed and get hung. Okay? The real killer, just like in JFK, was close by a Secret Service agent. Really close by. So if you want to find out who shot Charlie, look for someone close by, maybe behind him or to the right to give you some clues. I'm not going to tell you exactly what it is. Just do your homework and you'll start to find out. And that would explain why Charlie's neck went like this. If he was shot from the front, his neck would have went like this. If he shot from the side, this side, his neck would go like that. And you'd find an exit wound here. Now, some people think Charlie's still alive. Now, what they do, another psyops to fool people that, oh, Charlie's not even dead. He's alive still. So the far right fall for this. So I tell people, yes, they do stage things, but Israel doesn't generally stage assassinations where they don't kill you. Unfortunately, Charlie is 99% likely to be dead, just like Charlie was 99% likely to be killed by Israel. So if you think Charlie is dead, have a look at this.
Not counting gang violence. Great. Not counting gang violence. Great.
I hate showing that because it's absolutely horrible. But just to remind you, if you think Charlie Kirk survived that, or that's fake blood, then I'm going to suggest to you, you might as well be the far left nutters that will believe anything. It's not impossible to stage deaths. They do it in the movies. But to suggest or put your name to something, I would say to people out there that are suggesting that, will you bet me your house that Charlie Kirk's alive? If you're so sure of it, put up your house. Or do more. If you don't have $10 million, just put up 50,000, 10,000, but you won't because you're not so sure. It has a 1% probability that Charlie was fake assassinated. 1% chance, say. Why would you hang your hat if your job, and you don't follow fake news media, and your job is to try and help wake people up to the truth? Why would you risk your credibility and your reputation by spreading across social media that Charlie Kirk's alive, based on the flimsy evidence of that? No, but I'm just telling you, you'll do the freedom movement, truth is no favors, if you oppose fake news, but then you fall for fake news. Charlie Kirk is most likely dead, sadly. We wish it was a staged assassination and he's in Valhalla on Goat Island in New Zealand. But if you're really going to believe that, I will bet you your house right now that you're wrong. Because if you're looking at any murder investigation, if you want to know how are we accurately at Australian National Review for the last 12 years, how do we predict the rise of Bitcoin? How do we predict real estate markets in multiple countries? How do we predict the rise of gold? How do we predict and tell you? How did we tell you in advance that Israel was going to frame a left-wing transgender patsy and the real shooter was not the one on the roof, it'll be somewhere else, just like in the JFK assassination? How are we able to tell you that in advance? It's not because we have a crystal ball, but because we know simple patterns. So if you want to know how to predict the future with accuracy And if you want to know who killed Charlie Kirk, follow me very quickly. One, you do this. First of all, you have to have motive. Who had motive? Well, many people had motive. The left had motive. They hated him. But of course, Israel had motive. If you don't understand that Israel had motive, that Charlie was turning against them and they couldn't afford that. They had given him a lot of money to build his platform. They were ropeable and pissed. How dared Charlie take our money, become famous, build his whole career, and then turn against us? He found out the truth. He wasn't going to lie. And then he rejects coming to see Netanyahu, sends him a strongly worded letter, calls out Netanyahu for complicity in October 7th, which the public found out that Israel was behind October 7th, just like the day's going to come when Americans find out that Israel did September 11th, and Australians will find out when Israel is found out to have done the Bali bombings and the Christchurch massacre and the Port Arthur massacre and the Dunblane massacre and pretty much every major terrorist coup or massacre on the planet. When people finally realize that Israel did all these things and bombed USS Liberty and are behind every war on the planet, dropped atomic bombs on Nagasaki and Hiroshima, and go, oh, well, Israel wasn't even created in 1944. Well, yes, the same people that created Israel were, and they were behind World War II and World War I and lied to you about every single war. And they're lying to you right now. Netanyahu's been lying to you for decades. We must go kill Saddam Hussein and invade Iraq because they have weapons of mass destruction. I'm sure that's what Israel wanted from Iraq, was weapons of mass destruction. We must take them. I'm sure that's what it was about. Nothing to do with the oil or destroying and genociding Muslims. Libya, Yemen, Afghanistan, Syria, Lebanon. I mean, is there any more countries that Netanyahu and Israel can bomb in a single week? Actually, we'll talk about it in just a moment. Guess who now? They're threatening to bomb. So you must have motive. You must have capability. Does Israel have capability to pull off assassinations? Well, they do it every week, assassinate presidents and political folk. So the answer is yes. Who else has the capabilities to kill someone like Charlie Kirk in a professional hit? Intelligence agencies. And who controls the intelligence agencies? Mossad. CIA was created by Mossad Israel. You don't realize that? Intelligence agencies. No one else. So they have clear motive. They have clear capability. So already right now you could bet your house on it's Israel and you'll be pretty safe. But wait, there's more. Pattern recognition. Do they have a past history of this? Yes, they do. So if they have a past history of assassinating political figures, particularly in America, how do they do it? Oh, let's look at JFK, a famous assassination by Israel. And how do they do it? They put the patsies, Lee Harvey Oswald, at a distance as a shooter. He'd be brainwashed or told he's working for the Secret Service and it's his duty to America to do this, not knowing they're going to kill him and set him up and frame him for the murder. And they have someone close like JFK, Secret Service agent, which was sitting very close to him in the car and popped him off close range. Just like they, now, if that's the pattern, look for that pattern and see if that happened with the death of Charlie Kirk. And you will find out some very, very interesting things. Let's go to ad break. We'll come back and talk about some more.
Report.
And welcome back to McIntyre Report. We've been talking about who's the most likely suspects and killers of Charlie Kirk. And of course, Israel is. We put here at Australian National Review $10 million challenge up for anyone that wishes to prove otherwise. We have 99% certainty it was Israel. Why? Because clear motive. Charlie Kirk had turned against them in recent months. That's been clearly evidenced now. Netanyahu, why did they rush out? We also predicted what would happen. They would rush out and go on. Why would Netanyahu, who's busy bombing half a dozen countries nearby in the Middle East, all of a sudden be the first one, major leader, to tweet, even before American news headlines had the chance to run the story Charlie Kirk had been assassinated? He knew an immediate PR campaign, which is another way when you look when Israel's behind things, just like October 7th. They had the PR campaign and it focus tested the words raping babies, baby beheadings, baking babies. They had already focused as they had the PR campaign ready to roll instantly. It's another big clue. Who prepares all that if they don't know it's happening? So the roadshow already happening straight out. He's going on the roadshow denying that Israel had any involvement in the kill of Charlie Kirk. That's funny. You're denying it before we even accuse you of it. What other leaders in the world had to go on a roadshow to deny that their nation had anything to do with killing Charlie Kirk? Besides, none. So not only is the guilty suspect, the prime suspect, showing guilty tendencies, we then said they would frame a leftist transgender patsy, which is like, wow, how do we know that? Because that's, of course, what Israel want to do. They want to tell you the opposite of what really happened. They control the intelligence agencies. Israel is guilty all over. There's enough now already to run a court case and likely win against Israel. And don't worry, wait, there'll be more come out, more and more evidence. The only way Israel hopes to get away with the continued assassinations and terrorist activities around the world and starting wars is there's a lot of dumbed down Westerners or a lot of Christians that are fooled and fake Christian pastors that stand with Israel. I had a message from a pastor, a Christian pastor this week saying, thank you, Jamie, for speaking out and warning people about supporting Israel, particularly Christians. If anyone does their homework, there's no way a Christian can stand with Israel. And it's so true. And I'm warning people, if you care for Charlie will die in vain if Israel is able to install Ben Shapiro and Turning Point and turn Turning Point into a Zionist gender fest like it used to be. If people sign up to be Christians, become fake Christians and support Israel because they're deceived about thinking it's biblical Israel, then Charlie Kirk's death will be in vain. But Charlie Kirk, by him waking up in recent months and dying for it, willing to die, his life was sacrificed because he turned against the evil satanic nation, the fake state of Israel, then it will be a turning point in Western history. Charlie's life can be a turning point that wakes people up to go, hang on, why are we fighting amongst each other? Why are we divided, black and white, left and right, gays and non-gays, LGBTQ, all Israeli agenda-driven propaganda to divide you, immigrants, non-immigrants. Why are we not uniting? And we were uniting. The left and right were finally agreeing on something, that Israel's a problem, that Israel's behind October 7th, that Israel's doing all these things, that Israel is committing a genocide in Gaza, even though they try and deny it. We can see it with our own eyes, and they'll still lie to you. They will lie to your face. So why would anyone believe Netanyahu? Why would anyone believe Israel? They have never told the truth ever. So you think now they're telling you the truth about Charlie Kirk? They're telling you that Israel didn't kill Charlie Kirk, that now telling you the truth, that now you should believe them for the first time in history, when the fake news media they largely control tell you it was a patsy, it was a transgender leftist. Should you now trust them and believe in the lies and the news media that's lied to you every single time throughout your entire life? Should you now suspend reality and now believe them? How many people figured out the COVID fraud, are meant to be on the right, that think that a transgender lefty and are now divided, hating on the left, just as Israel wanted, and believe what Israel's telling them, Oh, no, Israel didn't kill Charlie Kirk. I mean, how stupid do you have to be when you could deduce and figure out Charlie Kirk was killed by Israel in 5 minutes with some basic common sense, the law of probabilities, pattern recognition, motive, and capability. It's as simple as that as we've covered. So wait, there's more. If you don't think Israel is the problem for humanity, is the enemy of your future, of your children's future, is the reason why you have to pay such high property prices, the reason you pay so much for everything, the reason you can't afford the life you want. If you think it's not Israel behind that, who invented income taxes? Who's increased taxes throughout the West? Who's flooding the West? Who's pushing the house prices up? If it's not the bankers, excuse me, behind Israel. And do you understand that this nation is responsible? The Rothschilds are responsible for all these things. Now, this is not some conspiracy thing. People say, well, you really should stop blaming Israel for everything. It's like, I'm sure I'll happily stop blaming Israel for everything they do. But did the Rothschilds not invent income tax? Did the Rothschilds not invent the Federal Reserve and set up the fraudulent central banking system that prints fake money up until recently? Now China and Russia and the BRICS no longer will buy into their scam. Yes or no? The answer is clearly yes if you know what is going on in the world. But don't listen to me. Let's see now who Israel wants to start a war with. Let's pick another nation. Netanyahu who wants more war.
Alongside Marco Rubio, America's new Secretary of State, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu didn't just make policy announcements, he essentially declared war on multiple fronts, named China as a primary adversary and issued threats that could drag the world into a conflict none of us are prepared for. Hamas leaders, Netanyahu said, looking directly into the camera, can run, but they cannot hide. We will pursue them wherever they are, in Gaza, in Qatar, in Tehran, in Beijing, wherever they find sanctuary, we will find them. Netanyahu claimed that China is actively orchestrating what he called a global siege against Israel. According to the Israeli Prime Minister, Beijing isn't just a passive observer in this conflict. They're an active participant, providing what he termed aslaha, weapons, and comprehensive support to Hamas and other groups opposing Israel. Make no mistake, China is behind the anti-Israel protests we've seen across Western capitals. They are coordinating, they are financing, and they are arming our enemies. The dragon has entered the arena, and we see its claws everywhere. This was the language of war, and it represents a fundamental escalation in how Israel views the global chessboard. Netanyahu alleged that China has been providing military support not just to Hamas, but to what he described as all countries and organizations aligned against Israel's right to exist. He claimed that Chinese intelligence services have been coordinating anti-Israel demonstrations in major Western cities, providing funding, strategic guidance, and even personnel to amplify anti-Israeli sentiment globally. Furthermore, according to Netanyahu's presentation yesterday, China has been using its Belt and Road Initiative and economic influence to pressure countries into taking anti-Israeli positions in international forums. He suggested that Chinese diplomats have been actively working to isolate Israel diplomatically while simultaneously providing material support to groups that Israel considers terrorist organizations. Secretary Rubio, for his part, didn't contradict these assertions. Rubio said, the United States takes very seriously any foreign interference in regional conflicts, especially when it involves state actors providing support to designated terrorist organizations. Netanyahu isn't just making accusations, he's essentially declaring that Israel now considers China a direct threat to its national security. If Israel genuinely believes China is actively supporting Hamas and orchestrating global opposition to Israeli policies, then Israel may feel justified in taking direct action against Chinese interests. This could mean targeting Chinese nationals or facilities in countries where Hamas operates, disrupting Chinese economic projects in the Middle East, or even conducting cyber operations against Chinese infrastructure. The implications become even more serious when we consider Israel's history of unilateral action. This is the same country that has conducted operations in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and beyond when it felt its security was threatened. If Netanyahu genuinely believes China poses an existential threat to Israel, there's precedent for Israel taking matters into its own hands, regardless of international law or diplomatic consequences. Netanyahu is a master of political theater, and he understands that invoking the Chinese threat resonates powerfully with American audiences and policymakers who are already concerned about Beijing's growing global influence. Consider the broader context of Sino-American relations. We're already in what many describe as a new Cold War with China, competing economically, technologically, and increasingly militarily across the Pacific. If Israel now openly declares China an enemy and begins taking action against Chinese interests, it could force the United States into a position where it must choose between supporting its ally and avoiding a direct confrontation with Beijing. This is where the specter of global conflict becomes real. China isn't Hamas. China isn't a non-state actor operating out of tunnels in Gaza. China is a nuclear-armed superpower with the world's second-largest economy and increasingly sophisticated military capabilities. If this conflict escalates to include direct confrontation between Israel and China, with the United States backing Israel, we could be looking at the kind of great power conflict that hasn't occurred since World War II. Rubio's statement suggested that the United States is prepared to support Israeli actions against what they jointly consider to be Chinese interference in the region. This brings us to the most frightening possibility, that yesterday's press conference wasn't just about making accusations, but about preparing the ground for action. If Israel and the United States have jointly concluded that China represents a direct threat to Israeli security, they may already be planning responses that could trigger the kind of escalation spiral that leads to global conflict. The mechanics of how this could unfold are terrifyingly straightforward.
So there you have psychopathic war criminal Netanyahu. We in Australia, we call someone like that a dickhead. Utter dickhead. It's so predictable. We can predict exactly what Israel does. They need war. Bankers' wars. All wars are bankers' wars. The US, because China and Russia and the BRIC nations are dumping the US dollar, they need war to reset their global economy and get control again. Israel is going down. And I've been saying here recently with Australian National Review, we need to give more credit to China. In the West, we're so propagandated. We think China's communist. We're democratic. No, we're not. We have a uni party in the West, do we not? We have the choice between left faction Israel and right faction Israel. Both want a one world government and both will enslave you, goyim. And if you speak up and say something they don't like, they'll Charlie Kirk you. These are sick, satanic individuals that will bomb children, sniper them in the head, and when their parents are picking up the body pieces spread out, the only pieces they spread through Middle East is the children's body pieces, and the parents have to pick them up, they drop bombs on them or starve them to death. If that's a nation that you want to stand with and have lead the world and rule over your children and grandchildren, by all means, stand with psychopathic nutcase dickhead Netanyahu, who just had Charlie Kirk. By all means. Oh, no, but China's communist. Really, what communist part of China is communist? Funny communist country. I know any communist country I've seen in the past was poverty-riven, didn't have free market capitalism, didn't have a government that really cared about its people and led them to prosperity. There's not a lot of communism in China. Oh, they have a one party. Yeah, kind of like the West. But whose political system, whether you like it or not, is more superior? China's or the West? Well, look at the results. China builds, creates, not destroys. Israel-led West bombs cities as China's building cities. The Israel-led West builds military bases around the world and bombs nations and starts terrorists, funds terrorists so they can have the excuse, oh, now they're claiming even if Hamas is in Beijing, we'll go after them. Typical tactic of Israel. They want war, not trade, where China wants trade, not war. Israel wants you impoverished through taxation and theft to fund their military budgets, where China wants prosperity. How many military bases has China set up around the world to take over the world? Oh, but China's going to take over the world. How many military bases have they set up to take over the world besides a big fat zero? How many countries in the last 12 months has China bombed? Last 10 years? How many? None. Oh, but they're going to invade Taiwan. Really? Who's telling you that? Israel? Who controls American foreign policy? Israel? No, Israel is interfering with Taiwan, trying to provoke a war with China, as they interfered with Ukraine in 2014 to start a war with Russia, as they've been trying to provoke and start a war with Iran and every country. Now they want the whole world. This is so predictable. This is typical psychopathic Netanyahu. We need regime change in this world. Yes, I agree, and it should be him. How much longer are you going to remain divided, people, by this fool, This psychopath that's arrogant, ignorant schmuck that thinks he has the right to send off your kids and grandkids to die for another banker's war. When are you going to realize this is not biblical Israel? This is a fake state created in 1948 by satanic Luciferians that hate you, absolutely hate you, hate Christians. And they want you to hate on Muslims, because if Muslims and Christians are divided, guess who wins? If you cannot see this playbook, how easy it is to see once you understand Israel, the fake state of Israel, the Rothschilds and the banker state, is the core problem of all issues on the planet. Once you understand that, then you can predict the future with accuracy and bet your house on what's going to happen, just like we can here at the Australian National Review. But if you don't know that and you're divided, some leftist transgender killed Charlie Kirk, it wasn't Israel. Oh no, Charlie Kirk's still alive. He's on Goat Island in New Zealand in Valhalla, because Kash Patel said, see you in Valhalla, despite the fact that meaning to a warrior, see you in heaven. I mean, wake up, people. This is a time where you need to be able to deduce and know what's happening and cut through the bullshit and see a finished jigsaw puzzle before it's finished. But if you've seen a jigsaw puzzle finished before, you can walk in to a room with unfinished jigsaw puzzles, and if people are trying to put the same jigsaw puzzle together, but you've already seen it finished, you can identify the patterns and help them very clearly see what they can't see. And that's our job here at Australian National Review and independent media, to help people see what they can't see already, because we know what's going on. We can check our track record of how able we're to predict the future with such accuracy. We're not reading the future. We don't have a crystal ball. We simply have certain fundamentals of probability, of pattern recognition, of knowing history, and some basic common sense and ability to have BS detectors and know, very simply, it's not hard. I can teach a 5-year-old how to do this stuff. If you're not sure and you're too busy paying off your mortgage or to fund your rent to know what the fuck is happening in this world, here's a simple test for you. Whatever they're telling you on the TV is fake. Whatever the intelligence agencies, which have zero intelligence, tell the media and your government is what happened, is bullshit. If they tell the media that some patsy on a roof, transgender leftist, killed Charlie Kirk, that's 100% certainty you know that's bullshit lie. And if the media runs with it, that's a 200% certainty. And if your governments in the West that are Israeli-led support it, then of course you would know that's nonsense. So whatever they're telling you is generally 99% a lie. Look in the opposite direction and start looking for the fucking truth if you're too busy to know what it is. Wake up, people. This is your future online. If you think, I don't have to worry about this, that's some psychopath like Netanyahu, what's that got to do with my life? I'm just going to focus on my life. Well, who got jabbed from vaccines, pushed by these nutcases? Who starts every war? Who started the war? Go to Ukraine and get a drone killing you. 1.3 million dead Ukrainians because of this nutcase. Do you think that's what's going to stop at that? Now they're claiming 600,000 Gazans could be killed by this nutcase, 2+ million starving to death. But if they start war with China and Iran and God knows who else, and it starts World War III, how many tens of millions, maybe more, hundreds of millions or even billions if it goes to nuclear war will die because you couldn't tell the truth. And you got so distracted with bullshit or falling for the division between left and right that you weren't able to do and help wake people up. You have a duty to know the truth in the West, and that's what your duty is. That's why you study independent media, not to fall for fake news bullshit. We all have a duty to know the truth. And if you can't figure out that Israel is the common enemy of humanity, they are satanic Luciferians. They are not who they are telling you. And Charlie Kirk figured that out before they killed him. And he let Charlie Kirk die in vain? Well, just keep believing the bullshit. We'll be back with some more just after this break.
McIntyre Report.
Welcome back, folks. The McIntyre Report here live in Australian National Review Studios. Follow our 24-hour news headlines. ANR.news. Well, Netanyahu's now threatening China, looking for another country to bomb, is he? Ran out of countries in the Middle East, surrounded by enemies. It's funny when Israel says they're surrounded by enemies. Maybe move. Like, who plonked Israel in 1948 in the middle of supposed enemies? It's like it's their fault that they were there first. We're talking about, and two people realize the common enemy is Israel, the enemy of humanity, and stand up to them. They'll keep on being played left, right, black, white, gays, non-gays, immigrants, natural-born citizens. Israel's a masters of PR spin, masters at lying and bullshitting to you. So if we're going to help save the world, we can't be dumbed down Westerners, easily manipulated like the far left is. But then there's some people on the right that are still falling for bullshit. Very disappointing. Like, some people think what the fake news media intelligence agencies telling you who killed Charlie Kirk, oh, must be true. Those bloody leftists, we hate them anyhow. So, yeah, I agree. It was a transgender lefty. I mean, really, come on, folks. You're being played so easily. We know Israel did it. We've got $10 million on the line. Take our money if you think Israel didn't do it, or if you think Charlie's still alive, unfortunately. Let's look at what's happening in the world. We have to understand the shift towards China.
According to top global analysts, by 2027, America may no longer survive as the world's dominant superpower, and China could be in full control. The U.S. currently holds a massive GDP of over $27 trillion, but it's weighed down by a record-breaking $34 trillion in national debt. Every second, that number grows, weakening America's economic foundation. On the other hand, China's GDP has already crossed $18 trillion and continues to rise rapidly, with far more control over its domestic debt. While America struggles with inflation, endless money printing, and political division, China is building global influence through trade, tech, and infrastructure, especially via its Belt and Road Initiative. Experts warn that if these trends continue, America could face an economic collapse, while China quietly takes charge, not with war, but with financial control and international alliances.
See, China is becoming, already is the dominant power, let's face it. If you adjust the GDP for how it should be, China's already the largest economy, not America. America is collapsing. It's been taken over by Israel, and it's been sucked dry, just like they destroyed the British Empire, and they want World War III. It's the writings on the wall. China doesn't want war. Russia doesn't want war. Iran doesn't want war. These people don't want war. You and I don't want war. The only person who really wants war is Netanyahu and his masters. So we either go to World War III or we do something about Netanyahu. Regime change. He loves doing regime change. Let's regime change Netanyahu. A lot of Jewish and a lot of Israelis would like to see that happen. It's not like we can say it's anti-Semitic to criticize Netanyahu. It's not because Jewish are allowed to criticize him. Well, not allowed, but they do. There's protests all the time. He's an illegitimate prime minister of Israel. He started October 7th to stay in power. He needs to go to war to stay in power. I think it's time that something was done about Netanyahu. Not saying he should be Charlie Kirk, or would never want such violence brought upon someone. But can someone do the world a favor? Punch him in the head. Maybe.
Isn't this a strange headline from IsraelNationNews.com? As the West dies, Israel's future lies with rising Asia. Wow. 77-year history of Israel's diplomatic alliances with the West appears to be ending. And increasingly, we see that we have disturbingly little in common with the dying West. So now they're going to try to be a parasite on Asia. Isn't that amazing? So the West was thriving. And then Israel becomes a leech on the West, sucks it dry, kills it, and says, oh, we've destroyed our host. It's time to find a new one. Isn't that amazing? What an admission. What an absolutely stunning admission. You killed the West, you sucked the West to death like a parasite, and now you're moving on to Asia. You know what? I don't think they want you.
Well, I can assure you, China doesn't want Israel. TikTok, the reason Israel wants to buy it for the American version, to control it, is because on TikTok, it's very anti-Israel. As anyone in human decency is anti-Israel. Only the pure evil support Israel, or deeply deceived. So if you have friends that are still standing with Israel, like they seriously brainwashed. If they haven't figured it out by now, they might as well take their 8th booster. It doesn't matter if you're Jewish. No excuse for standing with Israel. I have plenty of Jewish friends, and plenty of Jewish are speaking out. I've had them on my show. There's plenty of them. So it's not a Jewish issue either, and we shouldn't make it a Jewish issue. So let's stick to it. It's a Zionist issue.
I'm also inclined to believe Candace Owens, to be honest with you.
Bill Ackman was very upset, and threats were made. A couple of weeks ago, before Charlie lost his life, Charlie was in the Hamptons.
Tumultuous, stormy meeting held in the Hamptons during the first week of August, convened by the billionaire ultra-Zionist financier Bill Ackman, who was close to Netanyahu and his kind of network in the United States. Charlie Kirk was summoned, and Charlie Kirk was, according to one source, hammered by Ackman and others for allowing Israel critics, very prominent conservative voices like Megyn Kelly, Tucker Carlson, or the anti-Zionist Jewish comedian Dave Smith, to appear at his events.
It was at this time that Bibi Netanyahu was called, and Charlie was invited to Israel. This was an under duress situation, I would say, because I've been in these situations before. When I started asking very sensible questions about Israel, as someone who had dedicated her political life to supporting Israel, many times alongside Charlie Kirk, I was met with the very same pressure. And just like Charlie was being invited to Israel, I was invited somewhere else. And when this arrived to me, it felt like a threat. Not like, hey, come here and we can educate you because you're my friend. More like, this is your last chance.
Okay, so just keep in mind that literally, just one day after that meeting, Kirk made his comments about the pressure he's facing and the criticism he's getting on Megyn Kelly's show.
Honestly, the way you are treating me is so repulsive. I have text messages, Megyn, calling me an anti-Semite. My moral character is now being put into question, Megyn.
So the timeline makes sense. Everything adds up here. And I'm also inclined to believe Candace Owens, to be honest with you, because I have personally seen the wrath of pro-Israel figures in this country threaten you. And if they see that they can't really do much about your employment, they'll go after your family members. They'll try to ruin your life. That's currently happening to my husband right now, who's not a political figure at all, has never even uttered a word about Israel or what's happening with the genocide in Gaza. But since these people can't touch me, they're going after my husband and attempting to get him fired from a job that he loves. That's who these people are. They're despicable. Despicable.
I agree, they are despicable. I was cancelled in Australia in 2013. Government dodgy agencies which they control, and because I spoke out. I warned people about the globalist agenda, World Economic Forum. You'll know nothing but be happy. The left faction, Israel, right faction, they all want the same thing. They want to run the world because they think they're supreme beings. Supremists. They think they're better than you. I don't know why. But these nutcases, delusions, dangerous. Netanyahu is a dangerous lunatic. If you haven't figured that out yet, what's it going to take? World War III?
If you don't know who Peter Thiel is, I need to give you some context. Peter Thiel might be the most dangerous man in America today. He's a tech billionaire, and he got his start by raising a cool $1 million from his friends and family and getting into venture capital in 1996. His first big break was PayPal. You may have heard of the PayPal mafia, people like Elon Musk, David Sachs, Reid Hoffman, Peter Thiel. Thiel founded his most infamous company, Palantir, in 2003. Today, Palantir is laying the groundwork for the digital mass surveillance state that's slowly being rolled out across the United States, with the ultimate goal of predicting crime before it happens, pre-crime. It's been their dream for a long time. Palantir started as a digital mass surveillance platform for the battlefield. Its technology has been tested and honed by the IDF on the Palestinians in the West Bank, as well as in American combat theaters across the Middle East. And at this point, a lot of the details of how Palantir's programs work are actually shrouded in top secret classifications that come with its numerous Pentagon and intelligence agency contracts. But Peter Thiel is way spookier than just Palantir.
That would be enough to collapse the current paradigm and change the whole planet.
Well, of course, Peter Thiel, tech bros, Israel, that's what they've planned for you. A one world government where a few small group of nutcases rule the world, track and trace surveillance, digital ID, they'll own you, starve you, control you. If you don't want that as a future, all you have to do is discover the truth. You can't just half have the truth. You can't then be easily, they go and assassinate Charlie Kirk and then manipulate you into, hating on just the left. And you're divided again, and you manipulated thinking some leftist transgender killed Charlie Kirk, and oh no, Charlie's alive. They just pretended to do it. No, Israel doesn't pretend to kill people. They're professionals at it. That's what they do.
You stand with Israel.
This infiltration of the United States became fundamental. Israel, they had a policy of sending key people to America, and one of them was a guy called Benjamin Emanuel, a bomber with the gun, and he gave birth to Rahm Emanuel, who was the White House chief of staff to Barack Obama in his 2 terms. There was another son called Ezekiel Emanuel, and he was one of the Biden advisors on the COVID fake vaccine, the lockdowns, etc. All these people that get funding from AIPAC have to make this pledge to do what's best for Israel and to defend Israel. When Netanyahu goes to speak to both houses of Congress, that's why you see standing ovations. What this whole thing has been since Israel was established is a buying time operation. Buying time to take over the lot and then start to pick off other countries and other land around Israel, and for the Greater Israel Project, which is real.
The one and only Jewish state.
So there's your world leader, folks. If you live in the West, Netanyahu is the United States president effectively. And if you live in Australia, even though the current government doesn't like him, he still dictates and can criticize the Australian Prime Minister at will and dictate terms in Australia. If he doesn't like something, they just do a fake caravan terror plot, or they pay their little agitators to paint graffiti on anti-Jewish graffiti and then ramp up anti-Semitism. They love anti-Semitism. They need that. Of course, if they didn't want anti-Semitism, they could stop bombing children to death, sniping them in the head, and they want to make you think if you're on the right of politics, you can't stand with the same people on the left that stand with the people of Gaza. It's about the only thing the left gets right is supporting, standing with Palestine and standing against the genocide. But it doesn't matter if you're left or right of politics. You should know as an individual that it is wrong to bomb children. The only peace they want in the Middle East is pieces of children's body parts spread around. As a Chinese minister correctly said, well, how about you shoot the terrorists and stop shooting the children? Stop killing innocent civilians. In the Ukraine war, although it's been about 1.3 million Ukrainian soldiers killed, about 200,000 Russians. So Ukraine suffered massive losses. Out of that entire war, which is a very deadly war, only about 8,000 civilian deaths. 8,000. And there's been about 1.5 million soldier military deaths. Now, the Gaza war, there's only been about 8,000 claimed Hamas killed. Now, half of them aren't Hamas. They're just normal people. They claim if you work for Hamas, if you've got a job, which might be in the school or just doing your normal duties as trying to function in the government, they still classify you. So about half that. So about 3,000 to 4,000 militants have been killed. About 100,000 at least civilians, but most likely now it was 377,000 missing. They're now talking as high as 600,000 could be dead. So strange that, isn't it? Is Israel really going after Hamas, considering they fund Hamas, considering they have Mossad operators in Hamas, considering they started Hamas? No, they need terrorists to put in every country they want to target. Then they can go, We're going after terrorists. We're not really genociding the locals and stealing their resources now, are we? We would never do such a thing. We're Israel. We're God's chosen ones. We're what you read about in the Bible. Despite the Bible being written thousands of years ago, and modern-day state of Israel never existed when the Bible was written. Hello? Explain that one. And I'm pretty sure God kicked them out of the temple, or Jesus did. The money changers. So why would he choose the Rothschilds, these bunch of pedophile elites, to represent him here on earth? Maybe just check with God, but I'm pretty sure if you stand with Israel, you won't be going to heaven if you're a Christian. Pretty sure on that. You want to take a bet? I'll bet your house on it right now. You'll get to the debrief room when you die. It's a simple question. Did you stand with Israel? Yeah, I love Israel. Yeah, I read it in the Bible. Well, go to hell where those fuckers are going. Let's continue, shall we?
The person nearest to Trump is his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Netanyahu was sleeping in Kushner's bed in the family home. Netanyahu's very, very close friend of Kushner's father, Charles Kushner, a real estate mogul who was jailed for illegal campaign contributions, tax evasion, and witness tampering. Jared has funded illegal settlements in Israel. A funder of AIPAC. He's got big business connections to George Soros, Trump. From day one, he handed the American economy to Steven Mnuchin as his Treasury Secretary, also an ultra-Zionist. He named his own lawyer, the extreme Zionist David Friedman. Jason Greenblatt, he became U.S. Special Representative for International Negotiations, which include negotiations between Israel and the Palestinians. The Israeli regime is planning to push ahead because they own the President of the United States. This is the reality that we're facing.
True.
Your time is running out, you people. Randy Fine is an artifact of years gone by when you could speak about, because they're Muslims, and some of your viewers may not like this, I'm sorry, but because pretty much every American president has proven their toughness credentials by murdering a few of them. I mean, a few million. Pretty much every American president comes into office, wants to let people know they're serious, kills a few million Muslims. Over and over and over again. Is it any wonder that some of them have the opinions about America that they do?
Like, why are they chanting death to America? Because we're killing them? We're responsible for death with our weapons and our funding?
For decades, we've been murdering them like it's nothing. And treating them like subhumans, like people who don't have... and frankly, I'm sorry, Muslims and Jews, both people of the book, if we have a relationship as Christians with any other faith, we have it as much with Muslims as we do with Jews. Frankly, some of their morality and some of their prescriptions about daily life have a lot more in common with a traditional Catholic than any Jewish teaching I've ever heard.
Yeah.
And yet we treat these people as though they are animals in foreign countries to be exterminated when it suits us financially or in any other way, to then protect a foreign country, not ours, and its logos and its supporters from reasonable outraged responses by fellow students in this case, with the language, the elevated language of statehood. Thank you for your leadership. It's disgusting, but I can't help but think they got 10 years of this left. And then it's over.
I think it's less than 10 years.
Hopefully.
I actually think that's why they're speeding everything up right now, because they recognize that nobody's falling for this anymore.
Ramping up.
It's clear Israel is desperate, dangerous as they become more desperate. They believe in a Bible prophecy and want the world to hate them and rain down and destroy Israel. I would say very clearly, we said last year, if you're an Israeli, leave. Flee Israel. There is no future in Israel. It's a fake state, doesn't belong there. It doesn't matter. They want to argue. The people that live in Israel are not Israelites. They don't have the DNA and blood from there. They're from Khazaria, which is eastern Ukraine, and they can't even go there now because they're trying to bomb that and kill eastern Ukrainians and have a war with Russia, which most eastern Ukraine is part of Russia. And ethnic Russians, they want to wipe them out so they can make it Israel too. That's the leftist faction of Israel wants to return back to eastern Ukraine That's why the war is there. And of course, they want to weaken Russia. They knew if Russia's preoccupied with the war, they couldn't step in and stop Israel taking over Syria and bombing every neighbor around. And now they're going to try and they'll start to provoke a war more with Taiwan to try and occupy China. So China, Russia, and Iran and other nations can't unite together and go, Israel, you drop one more bomb on one more kid, and we're going to wipe you off the face of this planet. They need to keep the powers distracted and try and pick them off individually. But China's not stupid. China doesn't want war, but I would not mess with their military machine. Russia didn't want war, but look at the power of the Russian military machine. Now they're a military superpower, a good Christian nation. I say this to Westerners. You have to get out of your brainwashing. If you think the West is good and you're on the right side that bombs kids and sniper kids and assassinates Charlie Kirk because he dared criticize this fake state and this motherfucker called Netanyahu, then you're going to support the evil and the end of humanity. What is wrong with China? There is nothing wrong with China. Oh, China's buying out Australia. Well, if they wish to have free markets and accept foreign investment, then what is the problem? If you don't want them to buy everything, then we can simply adjust that, but let them buy it, because there's only one thing worse than China buying you out. Think about that. China doesn't want war. We should respect China. Australia is rich and could be richer thanks to China. So show some appreciation and gratitude that China isn't building 750 military bases around the world and trying to create digital ID to enslave you all. Oh, but China has social credit system, says some dumb Australian. Show me another state or another city other than Melbourne that was the most locked down city in the world. Show me where other police were like shooting at protesters with rubber bullets that looked like stormtroopers. If you think you have freedom and keep criticizing China, China's not perfect, but it's a hell of a lot better. If you look at the bridges they build, the buildings they build, the cities they create, they are busy creating not just China, but helping poor nations around the world. Oh, they just loan money and in debt nations. Oh, who says that? Israel, Western propaganda? If they did, they'd be just copying what the West did, but they're actually not. The loans by Chinese are lower interest than what the West do, and they help build infrastructure, not war machines. They are building infrastructure to have influence in a positive way around the world, trade, not war. So is that not what you want? Or do you want Israel's way? Create terrorist groups and put terrorists whenever target nation and pretend they're going after terrorists, and they'll shoot you in the head. And you think it's not coming to the West, into Australia? We warned what they would do. They would have their sleeper cells, the extremist radical Islam, which Israel funds, and have sent into your country, including Australia, and you'll start to see machete attacks. You'll start to see violence and girls being raped on the streets. Ask London how that's going. Ask France how that's going. This is Israel doing this to you. So wherever you stand with Israel, then by all means, stand with the fucking devil. But Australians and Westerners need to wake up. Stop falling for Western propaganda. China's communist. Give China some credit. They are much better than what you think. Go to China if you think China is such a communistic controlled nation. People enjoy massive amount of liberties. You're being fed a lie. Oh, Russia's evil. Bullshit. Russia's one of the greatest countries on the planet. It's not perfect, but it used to be fucked under the Soviet Union. And you know why? Rothschilds. Rothschilds took over Russia, killed the Tsar family 100-odd years ago and destroyed it and made it the Soviet Union. And Putin come along and booted them out. And look how he's restored Russia. Just like Indonesia booted out Israel under the Suharto regime. And look how it's boomed in the last 25, 26 years, just like Russia. And now the BRICS is forming. So make your choice wisely, folks. If you want to stand with Netanyahu, by all means, stand with the sick, satanic, dying West. But if you're smart enough to know what's going on, you awaken and get the hell, your money out of the West before it collapses, or even possibly yourself. That's all we have for this episode, folks. But I must warn you, it's a dangerous time in humanity. It is not a time to start being manipulated to stand with Israel. Otherwise, you will live to regret it, or maybe, like Charlie Kirk, you maybe won't.